All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here are doing our long-awaited Week 0 preview and prediction. Nick, it is finally here. There's some timestamps below if you guys like to skip around the specific games, but the first kind of kick things off, Florida State and North Effective contests pretty easily, but we're still looking for specific things from these two teams, here in Week 0. Florida State, for me, I really want to see which wide receivers are utilized the most because they have a handful of veterans mixed in with a handful of transfers. Johnny Wilson from Arizona State, Micah Pittman from Oregon, mixed in with Ontario Wilson. Jaquez Douglas was a versatile player they used a lot last year. And then Keyshawn Hilton, another, redshirt senior. And Malik McLean, he's a sophomore who's shown some promise. So I'm really interested to see how Florida State's wide receivers. What's one big thing you're looking to see out of Mike Norvell's school?
Right, Florida State played Duquesne, who's a solid FCS program, not too bad in that tier. Obviously, Florida State should easily win this game. I'm looking at the defense, how they replaced Jermaine Johnson. Had a lot of production last year. Tough to replace that type of production. Talented players stood out on the film, on defense, on the edge. Can they replace that production early on? Who will step up at edge and be that leading defensive end for them? Also looking at the running back, Trayshawn Ward's a player I'm very high on. How is he going to look week 1? Is he going to be comfortable in there? Is he going to be able to pick up some yards? The redshirt sophomore had a decent season last year, but I expect him to break out big this year.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Jared Verse, they picked him up in the portal, highly touted transfer from Albany, so I want to see what he can do. Right now, my depth chart is listed as a number 2. Very interested to see the role he'll play early on in the season. I don't know how long we'll see the starters, but hopefully enough to gauge something out of them as they take on LSU the week after. So nice little tune-up here before they take on the Tigers. I think there's definitely an advantage in that. Florida A&M, they're going to take on North Carolina, though, in Chapel Hill right after this contest. The QB situation is really the biggest thing I'm monitoring. Drake May, Jacoby Criswell, these guys are both very ideal replacements for Sam Howell in terms of skill set and size. I think that Criswell is going to be the starter. He's got more experience here in Phil Longo's offense. Drake May, though, was the higher touted recruit. So, he's got one less year in the system. But if he earned the job, he earned the job. I'm very interested to see what happens. I haven't heard much. I haven't done much research on who the starter will be, but I'm expecting to see a bit of a 2 QB system here in Week 0. What are your biggest expectations for Mac Brown's school?
For me, the biggest thing to look at is how's this defense going to look under Gene Chizik. Chizik leaves the studio, comes back to coaching on the defense. He previously was defensive coordinator at North Carolina as well. Is his secondary going to improve quickly? The secondary looked very poor last year for North Carolina. Defense top to bottom looked very poor last year, and what was a really disappointing season in Chapel Hill. Can the defense step up and produce? Also, Criswell, I think he was a solid quarterback. Is he going to be able to replace the production from Sam Howell? And is this North Carolina team able to take that step forward that people have been expecting to take for a while now?
Gene Chizik is certainly a long-term thing to watch. I don't think we'll find out much here against Florida A&M, but, like last time, he returned and he got this defense clicking. They had the talent, but they weren't really performing well. He shows up and they're phenomenal the year, the first time he arrives. That's going to be kind of the storyline to watch with them this year because they're expecting similar this time around here on his second time around. Looking at the first game on the slate, Nebraska Northwestern kickoff conference play in Dublin, Ireland, 12 Eastern time on Fox. 12.5-point line in favor of the Cornhuskers. They lead the all-time series 9-6. Looking at Nebraska, they pick up Casey Thompson from Texas to replace Adrian Martinez. Quick reads, gets the ball out fast. He's a dual-threat guy. I'm very interested to see the speed of Trey Palmer in this contest, paired up with Marcus Washington, who's also a good deep threat, who was also at Texas with Thompson last year. And then Omar Manning, a 6'4", 225 pass catcher. They're up against a Northwestern secondary that was pretty good last year, third in FBS and 20-plus yard pass plays allowed. But they also had the 33rd fewest attempts against them because they got so gashed on the ground. But I really like A.J. Hampton. This is a guy that certainly stepped up last year. 12 pass breakups for him. Opposite side of Hampton is Cameron Mitchell, 6 on the team in tackles. So they got 2 veteran corners here matched up with an intriguing skill set of pass catchers for Nebraska. Coco Azima as well at 72 tackles from his safety spot. They do lose Brandon Jones. The experience for them in the back end, but they might be able to match up well through the air. But I do think the speed is certainly in favor of Nebraska.
Yeah, I think this is an exciting game to kick off the season. I love that the college football is going to Dublin, Ireland. Should have a great crowd in the Aviva Stadium. I like this Nebraska team this year. Casey Thompson, a solid quarterback. I like him transferring over from Texas. I think he has some serious potential. Here at Nebraska, Omar Manningham, a player I've paged to break out this year. I think he's super talented. Had a good year last year, but like the size on him, I think Manning can really step up this year. Trey Palmer as well, super talented wide receiver. Like the speed on him. Nick Henrik on the defensive side of the ball, I like him at linebacker. Really good leader, has great experience. I'm excited for this Nebraska team. I think they have some serious potential in the Big 12. I think Scott Frost is finally going to start to turn it around a little bit. I'm excited for this team top to bottom.
That's a big key for Northwestern, being able is mainly in this running game. I think this is the best chance for them to win. Cam Porter and Evan Hall. It's a nice duo of backs. I think they're going to need 250-plus rushing yards to win. If they hit that mark, they will. Running behind Peter Skronsky, who is one of the nation's top tackles. He's one of 4 starters back on an O-line. It really wasn't good for them. But I think the adds of Drew Jordan and Stephon Wynn are really going to catapult this run defense this season. And It's going to be a big key in this game. They certainly had some tough challenges last year, but for the most part, this was a good run defense. Great even at times, and that's going to be the biggest challenge here. Can they stop the run game of Cam Porter and Evan Hall? Because that's going to be Northwestern's best chance to win, because Taylinski in this passing attack were not really good last year. There's no real skill at wide receiver. I don't think they're going to win with skill or with size, so they're definitely at a disadvantage there. Like you said, though, Nick Henrik, Luke Ramir, two great linebackers that, kind of anchored this run defense there on a strong defensive line. No real pass rush, though, from them last year, but I don't think that's really going to favor Northwestern either, considering I don't expect them to win downfield a lot. I'm not going to really talk about the Nebraska secondary because, like I said, even though there is a lot of youth, that could certainly be a problem. I don't think Northwestern's going to win a lot through the air. The linebacking corps for Northwestern, though, has usually had some prototypical Pat Fitzgerald linebackers. Bryce Gallagher, he didn't play last year. He's been around a while, 332 career tackles. Wendell Davis from Pittsburgh, they picked up him. That's going to be the catalyst of this defense, this defensive line. The big reason why they struggle against the run, 119th in college football and stopping the rush. Pat Fitzgerald gave big attention to the D-line, adding 3 presumable starters from the portal. Tayshawn Holmes, he's 6'3", 315, a 6'5", 285 over Hardick Barnett, and Ryan Johnson from Stanford, a 6'4", 280-pounder. And Edie Bolar, he's not that big, but he's the best pass rusher for them. So some added size and some versatility to try to get a boost out of his defensive line. And, I like the effort, but Nebraska has good size on their O-line. Kevin Williams, 6'5", 325. That's some massive size. That's, that balance, I think, for Nebraska is going to be the biggest issue here. It's going to cause them issues. Not sure which back will make the waves because it's a versatile group. Like Anthony Graham's full of speed. He's a transfer. Ramir Johnson, he's more of the power back. And I got guys after that like Jaquez Yant. So I think that the balance is going to be the biggest key here for Nebraska, and I have them winning this one 38-14. But if they cannot stop the run against Northwestern, I think Northwestern's a great chance of winning this ball game. I don't see it playing out like that. I also think if Nebraska turns it over 3 times, they're going to lose too. So I think Northwestern will thrive with that energy. 38-14 for me. Seeing a bit of a blowout here in Dublin, but those are certainly some keys I'm watching.
I have my score at 35-10 for Nebraska. They'll cover the 12.5-point spread. Interesting spread early on for me. I like this Nebraska team this year. I think they have a lot of potential in the Big Ten. I think they have some serious opportunities to make some noise. I think Northwestern's not that great of a team. I really worry about what they're going to be able to do on defense. I think that they rely on the running game too heavy this year. I think they can find themselves in trouble because Nebraska should be decent against the run this year. This should be a fun kind of opening kickoff game. I like this game on the schedule. Exciting to see these two squads. I think Nebraska is a team that we don't really know a whole lot about. We want to see a lot from them.
The ground game will earn its fair share. Scoring points won't be difficult. I think they should handle Northwestern's best chance of winning, which is that strong running game. Fitzgerald, though, is a magician of sorts, and they could win this game. No problem here for me. I think Northwestern will get beat pretty badly, but it seems like a tough matchup, and it definitely could be, especially when you have to go to Ireland. That could certainly be a big factor as well. But I'm going to go 38-14. We both have Nebraska covering the spread. Moving on to UConn and Utah State. This is a game a lot of people are circling as a potential spread coverer for UConn. 15.6 points per game, 264 yards per game for this offense last year. They were every offensive stat was at the bottom of FBS. Taquan Robertson does come over from Penn State. No real size from him, though. 5'11", 203-pound guy. Has some nice spin on the ball, some good movement. He's a former 4-star. A little under 100 yards per game on the ground for this attack. Nathan Carter's back. He's their top leading rusher. The offensive line was pretty awful, and they had 3 transfers. I do like the 2 receivers they have in Killian Marin and Cam Ross. Those guys are pretty solid. Overall, this is a very young offense. 8 of the top 10 pass catchers last year were freshmen or sophomore. So that's promising for them in the future. But in terms of matchup, I don't really see how they win here. Byron Vaughns and T.J. Joyner are back on a D-line. It was one of the nation's best at getting into the backfield, and I think the loss of Travis Jones against a run defense that was not very good last year, he was a catalyst for them. They still ranked like 108th against the run. They faced Kelvin Tyler and Jordan Wilmore and John Gentry, 3 solid running backs that are, I think these guys are going to really eat up on the interior. 2 6'5", 310-pounders heading the charge on the O-line for Utah State. The UConn D-line size isn't really awful, but the depth is not very good. Again, Jones is gone. I think this offense will move fast, and that threat is really going to allow Logan Bonner and Justin McGriff over top. Xavier Williams, the Alabama transfer as well, might have some success. Utah State led the nation at pass plays of 40-plus yards last task for the Husky defense because the lack of depth is going to be concerning, and the balance is just going to be way too much here for Utah State.
I agree. This Utah State offense is actually a pretty solid offense top to bottom. I like to potentially have. I think this is a good little team. I do like that they have top on the offense. Nice production here. Defense also as well. Brian Vaughns, solid player. UConn, they're in it. They're they're certainly rebuilding. Been a difficult time in East Hartford. They're kind of bringing it together. I think the offense has some solid pieces. I like Ross. I like Marion. I think those two are solid guys. I think UConn will certainly get better over time, but right now this season they're going to have a poor season. I think Utah State will cover the spread 27.5. This is a fun offense, and they'll put points up week 1 as they prepare to go travel to Alabama week 2. This is an exciting game. A lot of people are circling it. The backdoor cover is certainly there potentially for UConn, but I think Utah State will easily cover this week, and it will be an interesting matchup to see.
Yeah, the offensive line is a pretty young unit for UConn as well. I'm not sure how fast Taquan Robertson is, but if they can win on the edge, then they might have some success with its running game here because the run defense was not very good last year for Utah State, and that is their best chance to at least hang around in this game for UConn. Even with the 2 good wide receivers, Utah State did not give up much downfield last year. That's where Hunter Reynolds at safety comes into play with a new dance partner in Gervin Hall from Miami. They obviously lose the other starting safety, and he's going to fill that role. They hung 45 points on San Diego State in the Mountain West Conference game, and that was a phenomenal defense. So what do you think they're going to do here to UConn, who allowed 38 points per game last year, and didn't really do much well other than have Travis Jones drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round? 52-17 for me. I don't expect this to be much of a contest. 27.5, almost 28 is a pretty big number, 4 touchdowns. I have no problem with them getting to that number, Nick. You have 49-10. Utah State should blow these guys out. Should be a fun game to watch. Still love that offense that Brett Anderson fields for Utah State. Looking at Wyoming and Illinois, the offense does not return much for Wyoming. 10-point line here in favor of Illinois, who hosts the Cowboys. They added Andrew Peasley from Utah State at quarterback. He's a pretty good runner, along with Titus Sween. He's second on the team with 785 and 7 scores on the ground. Complete makeover for a running game that averaged 211 yards last year, Nick, and only 1 starter's back on the O-line. So I think the philosophy will certainly be the same, but I don't anticipate it to work in this game. Not much production from the passing game last year either. The secondary was quite impressive for Illinois. Kirby Joseph was a big reason why he's now gone to the NFL. But Devon Weatherspoon, 8 tackle for loss, 9 pass breakups. He was versatile, but made some good plays for them. I like Sidney Brown. He's used in the box a good bit. And Jatavius Martin, he was good in the nickel. So I like the secondary. I think they'll match up pretty well in this game. Biggest news for Wyoming is this defense is usually pretty solid, but they only return 37% of their production from a season ago. They have produced a handful of NFL guys at linebacker. I think Easton Gibbs, who had 90 tackles, is next up. And then nose tackle Cole Godbaugh, 70 tackles, 5 sacks, and 7 tackles for loss. Those are 2 guys that are going to really lead this defense this season. This was the Mountain West's best pass defense a season ago. 190 yards per game allowed. They had picked up Wisconsin transfer Derwin Hall, Miles Williams at safety, joined by 3 sophomores in the secondary. So a lot of new faces. And this pass defense was no joke, though. They struggled a bit in the last 2 games, but during the season, they were rock solid. They held Utah State and Fresno State both in line. Those guys combined for like a 53% comp rate. They both had under 200 yards. That was no joke. Those are 2 of the best passing attacks in the conference, maybe if not the nation. Look at the offense for Illinois, though, Nick. Tommy DeVito in this offense, they're not going to look to be fancy. They're going to have some play action off a strong running game. And, they face a run defense that was pretty flat last year, nearly 4.6 yards per carry allowed. They lose a lot of players. Now they have to face Chase Brown and Josh McCray that opened up the season, one of the nation's best tandems from the Big Ten, 173 yards per game on the ground as a team. I expect that number to eclipse 200 this season. Loaded with size on the O-line, despite losing 3 starters. Everyone seems to be in that 6'5", 6'6", 300-plus range. I think that this is a tough matchup for Wyoming overall. You have this being a pretty close game. I don't see it happening. What's your expectations for Wyoming since you have them covering?
Where I think they will cover the spread, 10 points, interesting spread for me. I think Titus Sween, he's going to have a good day on the ground. I really expect him to break out this year. I like his potential. Had a decent season last year. I think he'll get the load a lot early on this season. He had 5.9 yards per carry last year, 7 touchdowns. Like to see him be involved very early on. I just get a little concerned about this Illinois defense. I think the running back core, McCurry and Brown, is one of the best duos in the country. I just think they're going to take some time to get kind of comfortable this season. They might find a little rust early on. This game could definitely be a blowout. It certainly is possible, but I think Wyoming will just have enough to cover the 10-point spread. It'll be a little bit closer. They'll make Illinois work for it, be a little bit dangerous early on. I'm excited to see what Wyoming can do on offense. I think their defense was also really solid last year. You said one of the better secondaries in the Mountain West. I think they'll be a good secondary again this year, despite replacing some talent. So it's going to be a more ground and pound kind of game for me from both teams. I think that both teams will be able to carry the load. All 3 running backs will be able to carry the load with ease. But I think this will be a close game. I have Illinois winning opening the season. I think Illinois will have a decent season overall, but Wyoming is going to cover for me. I think it's just an interesting week 1 spread.
Yeah, I just disagree. It's a pretty solid front 7 for Illinois. Keith Randolph, Jerzon Newton are back at their defensive end positions, and Calvin Hart's back at linebacker to kind of add some things for them. It just seems like a bad matchup for Wyoming, considering all they lose in the secondary. Yeah, they were strong, but they're pretty young now, and Illinois is not going to look to win through the air. 28-10 for me. 80% of the time of possession will go to Illinois. I think they're going to ground and pound this one and get out with an easy week 0 victory. They're not going to look to be fancy one bit. Should be an interesting contest, though, as Illinois kicks off the year as they play Indiana on a Friday night in week 1 after this. Looking at North Texas and UTEP, one of the more interesting games on the slate, considering this is only a 1-point line in favor of North Texas. 19-8-3 all time. They lead the series. They travel to El Paso though to kick off the season. He'll be the quarterback for North Texas. Is the biggest problem. Austin Ani, he's only 30 years old at this point. He's in a battle with 3 transfers they added at cornerback. Grant Gunnell being the most notable. They picked him up from Arizona. Well, from Memphis, really. He was at Arizona before that. He's on his 3rd different school. Good playmaking in the 2 starts he had with Arizona. He didn't play much last year, though. Returned 3 of the top 4 pass catchers. Roderick Burns led the team in receiving yards, receptions, and touchdowns by far. Damon Ward, Bryson Jackson are back. They picked up Jamori Macklin, Jeremy Macklin's cousin. Passing game should start to get back to where Seth Luttrell wants it this year, but I don't really see them having much success this season. The UTEP defense had their issues versus the stronger offenses, but they were still good. 6th in FBS and opponent completion rate at 55%. They picked up 3 transfers in the back end, but they do return senior safety Justin Prince, quarterback Tony Richardson with 8 pass breakups. Overall, I think this is a very sound defense, Nick. Breon Howard, Tyrese Knight, 100-plus tackles from both of them, a linebacker. They return the most production of anyone in the CUSA. This is a very impressive front 7. Praise Amualu, 13 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. Darian Taylor had the team high 6.5 sacks. And Keenan Stewart was very impressive for them. Not exactly a stat sheet warrior, but he's a very sound defensive tackle. Depth and experience on the D-line is very promising here for this UTEP Balls team. North Texas, their best chance to win is to run the ball. This is a very good running attack. 234 rushing yards per game. The offensive line was good. They have a very tough matchup, though, against that front 7. Oscar Attaway is coming back, though, off a torn ACL in 2020. Very successful, 572 yards and 3 scores in 7 games. Plus, had 3 freshman backs who had 360-plus yards last year. Ikea Ragsdale was pretty solid, 534 and 5 scores. Very good producers all around in this backfield, so they got plenty of guys they can throw at you. For me, though, I just think this is a very tough matchup here for UNT. UTEP, I think they're certainly going to lack explosiveness this year in their because they lose Jacob Cowling and Justin Garrett. So they're going to lack explosiveness. They won't have it like they did last year. Much like last year's contest, it's going to be a low-scoring game. UTEP forces a few turnovers that will make the difference. UNT linebacker, though, KD Davis is worth mentioning. This guy's elite. His numbers from the season ago were phenomenal. Drop off from the pass rush, though, I think will give Gavin Hardison some time. Explosiveness, of course, it's not going to be the same, but that's certainly going to be a key difference maker. I have this being one of the better games. Actually, I think it will be the best game on the slate, 24-21 for me in favor of UTEP. How do you see this one playing out?
I think it's going to be an exciting game. Definitely an underrated game on the schedule. When I first saw this game, I wasn't really too interested, but I dug a little deeper. I thought this was exciting. I have North Texas winning 21-17. I just think that running back duo, I think the running backs will be strong this season. I think Oscar Attaway coming back from injury, I expect him to have a bit of a strong season. I like his potential post-injury. I like that they can sort of ground and pound with him. I think they're going to wear down that UTEP defense early on. They might find themselves a little bit of trouble. I think KD Davis is going to have a strong day. I like UNT to win this game early on. It should be a slugfest, a tight contest, some turnovers, some sloppy football. But this is going to be an exciting game because it has some real potential. It's the closest line of the week at North Texas with a 1-point spread in favor of them. So I think they'll cover that 1-point spread. This is an interesting game, a different type of game to see on week 1, and it should be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I have UTEP's D-line reigning supreme. You have the running game having the slight edge. So that should be a fun matchup to watch, and hopefully this really is a close game like the line suggests. And moving to the final game on the slate, Vanderbilt travels to Hawaii. First meeting ever between these teams. A 7-point line for Vanderbilt. Me and Nick have a little friendly bet going on in this game because we're just not seeing eye to eye one bit on this ball game. I have Vanderbilt completely just blowing out Hawaii, while he has the Commodores losing to the Rainbow Warriors, obviously traveling to Hawaii as a tough challenge. But when you play this team, look at it. I mean, they lose 21 starters. Todd Graham obviously was a big reason why they're losing players left and right. He finally departs, and Timmy Chang takes over, which I think long-term is going to be a good option for them. Only 1 starter's back on the defense that was miserable, Nick. Nearly 32 points per game allowed. It wasn't the world's worst run defense, but they did allow 240-plus on the ground versus the 2 Power 5 schools they played last year. Only thing I'm not mad at about Hawaii is they added Joey Yellen from Pitt and Cam Cooper from Washington State at quarterback, but they might not even start. Brady Schrager is expected to be the starter, I believe. 3 starters are back on this offense. 2 on the O-line, Dedrick Parson at running back. He was listed as a starter, 600-plus yards for him last season. But other than that, that's it. There's no experience. There's no depth on this roster. I do think that the running game of Ramon Davis and Rocco Griffin should be very productive in this contest. And if you think Michael Owusu and Anthony Ojai won't have a field day against this Hawaii offense, I just think you're crazy. So we don't see eye to eye one bit. I just don't think Hawaii's going to be a competitive football team this year, especially in this game. The last year they had a good quarterback and some weapons. Chevin Cordero had some guys to work with. So the offense got things done. But overall, this is not a good football team one bit. Why do you have Hawaii winning this game and what I would consider an upset?
Right, so I certainly can see that Hawaii did lose a lot last year. I think the coaching change, though, is a positive one. I like the direction they're heading. I just think that I take a lot of value in teams traveling to Hawaii. That is a tough trip to make for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's offense, I'm just not really a big fan of. Their offensive line is terrible. They lost their best player in Tyler Steen, who transferred to Alabama. And I look at this Hawaii offense. Yes, they lost a ton of talent. Their defense also lost a ton of talent. But I think Dedrick Harson is such a talented back. I love the potential he has, the speed he has. He should have a breakout season this year for me in Hawaii. He's going to be getting get a lot of touches here, ground and pound type of offense. Hawaii's going to run the ball a ton this year because I don't really trust their quarterback play. I just look at this game. This is a game that has trap game for Vanderbilt written all over it for me. Tough swing West Coast travel, late night game. Pretty low spread considering things. I think Hawaii will win this game. I'm excited for this game. This is the most fun game of the week for me. I think it's the most wild card game of the week. I just think Vanderbilt's going to look sloppy. They're going to make mistakes early on, a couple turnovers, and I think Hawaii's going to ground and pound and have a ton of time of possession. They're going to come out with a win.
Now, Hawaii did add 7 transfers on defense and a handful on offense. But obviously, Timmy Chang's defense not going to be up for the challenge one bit against the SEC running game. I mean, this is a game that Vanderbilt has to win. It'd be very embarrassing for Clark Leah's program to go on the road here and lose this contest in Honolulu. I totally understand the traveling aspect of things, but we also have 2 teams traveling to Dublin here, and we don't have that affecting much one bit. So, like you're thinking it will be, it definitely could be, and they could certainly be flat here in week 1. Vanderbilt's going to win this one quite handily, though, against Hawaii. Should be very fun. For time, they'll stay up at 10:30 to watch 2 teams that are probably not going to have very many wins this season. Now, looking at the rest of the slate for week 0, not much. UNLV, Idaho State, which will be a pretty interesting game in the CUSA. Those games will be on CBSSN. And then Austin PA faces off against a new-look West 2's quarterback, Jarrett Dougie, who was supposed to be the starter, is now transferring for. See what happens on those games. And, of course, Florida State and North Carolina take this on ECC Network to cap off the night. So, overall, Nick, I'm very excited. It's always cool to have a handful of random games to get our college football season started. And this year is just the same. I think there's some very fun games on here. Vandy and Hawaii is exciting. The 10-point spread is going to be fun to watch. And then, of course, that Big Ten opener between Nebraska and Northwestern. What are your final thoughts on week 0?
Right, the Big Ten opener is certainly the one to watch to highlight the game for me. But I also think Vanderbilt-Hawaii is a lot of fun, definitely interesting game to see. I do like two ACC programs playing this week early on. Of course, UNC and Florida State are not playing 2 strong programs, 2 FCS programs, but I think this will be kind of a good way to look at the tempo, how these teams will behave this year, kind of get a good start for them, good doubleheader on ACC Network to kick off the season. I'll definitely be tuning into both of those games, at least for 2 quarters. I'm excited for those games. I also like, UTEP, North Texas, decent game. You can find it on TV or on a stream somewhere. Should be a little fun to watch that as well. Wyoming, Illinois, definitely a wild card game as well, considering I have Wyoming covering the spread. Should be a fun week to kind of lead us into what is going to be a crazy week 1 once we get there.
Florida State and North Carolina both have tough matchups in week 1 right after. Florida State plays LSU and then North Carolina plays Appalachian State. Those are both. So very interesting to get a bit of a tune-up before they face some tough contests. Like you said, though, can't wait for college football to finally be back. It should be a fun, competitive week here on the 27th of August. So that's going to be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excited for football to be back, baby.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.